Once upon a time on planet Earth, a mostly harmless world in some galaxy somewhere, two very nice chaps who always saw the good in everything, one called Paul and one called Jeff, decided to watch some movies about superheroes. Jeff had already seen all these films and he loved them all. He loved them so much, in fact, that he often went to bed with them and sang lovely songs to help him fall asleep and have nice dreams about Scarlett Johansson and Elizabeth Olsen. But Paul had only seen some of these films, so for him, he was watching many of them for the very first time. Would he love them as much as Jeff? Paul and Jeff decided they would start a podcast, and on this podcast, they would learn the answer to that very question. And in doing so, they would explore the world of the superheroes from corner to corner. And so it began. In time, the two great friends enjoyed their podcast together very much. However, there was one particular film which was so well liked by the superhero fandom, it seemed certain that Paul should also enjoy it. But he did not. He thought it sucked. And when he watched it again, afraid that he had made a terrible mistake, Paul thought the movie sucked even more, and the fans took notice. Paul and Jeff began to realise that whilst they enjoyed a great many things together, their opinions quite often diverged. And this division grew, and it created a great schism within the universe. Paul's daughter Freya joined the podcast towards the end of the run, and her perspective introduced even further doubt. She was female, and so much younger than either Jeff or Paul. The great schism grew wider, and soon they had no more superhero movies to watch. The two friends decided to continue their podcast, this time looking at their favourite TV show of all time, Doctor Who. Freya joined in on occasion, and it seemed for many a year as though the Great Schism would begin to close. However, it was not to be. Kill the Moon and Sleep No More ensured that a small crack kept the schism open even during the Jodie years when it seemed all three were in agreement of Doctor Who's greatness. And when it was announced that Russell T Davies was taking back Doctor Who, the Great Schism cracked open wider and began to grow as more doubts crept in, slowly at first but with ever-increasing power when Doctor Who returned to TV and introduced such concepts as salt to keep the demons away and goblins and Mavity. The Great Schism's hunger and rage threatened to devour their friendship, for it seemed that whichever episode of Doctor Who Jeff enjoyed, Paul did not, and that whichever Doctor Who story Paul enjoyed, Jeff did not. Jeff laughed at Paul's insistence that the laws of physics were respected, whilst Paul mocked Jeff's grieving at the loss of the 13th Doctor. The schism was unstoppable, and as the 15th Doctor's era drew to a rumoured close, and even though Paul kept himself apart from the rumours, it seemed as though the two great friends stood apart, facing each other across the unimaginable divide. Can Paul and Jeff ever be reconciled? Will the Great Schism ever be healed? Has the show they loved so much destroyed not only their friendship, but also the universe? Well, dear listeners, let's find out. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's really good.
That took me literally minutes to do that. I was bored waiting for you to start, mate. So I had to do something, didn't I? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, this episode is late coming out, everyone. I was late from work yesterday, and then when I finally watched the episode, it was even later, and then we couldn't record, and then I'm late tonight because kids. And,
it's Sunday night.
Yeah.
I'll get the kids to school in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to go to work and all that. Got to catch a train, get out to London Bridge and start working for my commuter ship.
And I've got to drive to Hawley.
You got to drive to Hawley. These things are what makes the world tick, my friend.
But no one's messaged us to say where's your review.
Nobody cares.
So, no one cares. But here we are.
About anything. Here we are. So we are going to talk. We're going to try and talk about Wishworld and the reality war, which closed off, unsurprisingly to me, to be honest. Even though I had seen some of the rumours, the 15th Doctor's era. I mean, it's like. There's a rumoured regeneration. Well, there always kind of is when things seem to be reaching some kind of crisis point. But it turns out, actually, it was true. Is this the end of Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor? It seems so sudden. It's so short.
I mean, normally, and I think in every instance I can think of, you get introduced to the new Doctor in advance. And
I like the idea that we haven't, though, if this is actually the way it's going to go. I've been, for ages, for years, I've been wanting a regeneration that we didn't know anything about, with somebody completely unknown or rumoured or whatever. I mean, these things are, it's impossible to have a rumour-free zone, isn't it? Oh, God, Jeff's off. That didn't take you long. What was that, 5 minutes before you went into a paroxysm of weirdness? You can't see, if you're just listening on Apple Podcasts, whatever, you can't see Jeff throwing back his face in a mock laughter, mock guffaw,
pain.
So what do we do? Should we talk about the episode, or should we just get straight to the elephant in the room? Because frankly, we're not going to go anywhere unless we do.
Well, why don't we just sort of talk about whatever, really.
Whatever. We're going to talk about whatever, listeners.
Yeah, because I think at this point, everyone will have seen Wishworld and the reality
we all know the story. Yeah, but people want to know what we thought about it. I can probably tell you in one word, actually, or just a few words, very few short words. Yeah, I thought it was mostly a bunch of guff. There you go.
Let's briefly touch on Wishworld and then move on to the main event.
Come on, let's cheer ourselves up first.
Yeah, I thought that I thought Wishworld was all right. I think I'm trying to remember it, really.
WandaVision. Think WandaVision.
Yes, that was it. It was basically...
So it opens up, the Doctor's doing an ordinary life in a pinstripe blue suit, bowler hat, umbrella, goes to work every day for the Unified Insurance Team or something, was it?
Something like
basically
that.
Unit, but...
and all the unit people are in suits and stuff, aren't
they? In the unit HQ, blah, blah, blah.
And then there's some sort of glitch in the system.
There are doubts.
The cups keep falling through the thing, and Belinda is his wife, and they've got Poppy, the kid.
Yeah, the space baby.
The space baby from Space Babies that Belinda randomly saw in the story in the engine, when she was wandering around trying to find a doctor.
Oh, she did see it, did she?
Yeah.
Did she? Very briefly.
And so I suppose the false reality was, sort of seeping through a little bit or something like that. But in this, it's been powered somehow by some baby that... When you kiss it,
seventh son of a seventh son, right? So this is a baby that had been snatched from Bavaria by the Rani, who had regenerated, sprang from Mrs. Flood's loins at the end of the previous story to wreak havoc upon the universe, right? So now there's two of them, the Rani and the Rani, the two Ranis, and that's good night from me.
Yeah,
they did that joke. Did you see it? They actually did the two Ronnies joke. It just, oh my God, it's just unbelievable.
And there's the baby that when you kiss its head and then go, you blow a wish into the air.
To be honest, mate, we've had much worse than this in Doctor Who recently. So whatever the fuck.
And so with Conrad, somehow they had created this sort of false world where it was Conrad's ideal representation of things. So disabled people were shoved away and things like that.
We know Conrad's got a very fascistic view of the world, does he not? So we'd seen that in Lucky Day
as well, with all of his
indeed, fascism does
his stuff up. So Wishworld ended. Also had like weird bone creatures walking around, something to do with the underverse or something.
I mean, they looked good, but what the hell? Seriously.
They sort of bled through, and it ended with the Doctor being trapped on a falling balcony and falling into the underverse, which had cracked open under the streets of London and presumably other places, hence in the trailers the Eiffel Tower and stuff like that floating through space. And then I can't really remember what happened to Belinda.
She vanished.
Oh yeah.
So so you missed out a massive chunk there, which was probably, to be fair, it's easily done because I think there was like 20 minutes of exposition, as the Rani took the Doctor and kind of waltzed him round the room in a kind of interactive PowerPoint session, basically.
Yeah.
And told him the whole nefarious plan, which I must admit took me a couple of watches to actually get it, I think. And even then, it makes no flipping sense whatsoever. I mean, we've had some bonkers plots in Doctor Who. I'm not going to lie, right from 1963, we've had some madness. And, that's just the way it is. It's just that kind of a show, and you can either take it on the chin or you can rage against it. And if you're going to rage against it, you might as well watch another show, to be honest. Because Doctor Who does have that. It's part of its DNA. And we do have lots of exposition by the main villain, usually, going to explain the plan. And this is kind of presented in a way that is very knowingly... it's very aware in the way that we've had lots of fourth wall breaking throughout the last couple of series, right? So this, in a way, doesn't so much break the fourth wall, but it acknowledges it by telling us that the Rani is giving us exposition. She makes the line, this is not just exposition, Doctor. So, by that she's saying, this is exposition, I know it's exposition, anybody watching this knows it's exposition, but it's here for a purpose. I'm not just telling you my evil plan because I want to, I have to, because I need you to react to it. So this is Russell thinking he's extremely clever and potentially, possibly justifying the whole fourth wall breaking thing, which also does continue because at the same time as all this is going on, Conrad is seeding doubts into the Doctor's awareness by reading stories of Doctor Who and Gallifrey. Now, that's clearly Doctor Who, right? He's even got a book which looks like one of those Penguin hardback books, entitled Doctor Who and the something.
Dream Warrior or something.
Wish, whatever. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, and all this, apparently, right, so the whole... reality that this what I had trouble with originally, right, was like, why would you create a false reality just to break it, right? I struggled this for ages, and it didn't. I think on the second watch I kind of got it. So I went to see this in the cinema with Freya, the double bill last night, and that was when it finally clicked in. I thought, okay, so the Rani needs to stress the fabric of reality, right, by layering on top of it another reality, almost like putting concrete on top of concrete on top of concrete. She's got to build a concrete block. And then what she's got to do is put enough stress on that block that the whole thing actually breaks and leaves a doorway open to this underworld, hellish kind of hidden universe, which has many different names in Stranger Things and stuff like that. I think they did call
the Upside Down,
the Upside Down, didn't they? So, there you go. So it's legend, it's mythology, which in a way ties into a lot of the themes that have been running throughout the last couple of series, right? This idea of legends and gods and monsters and fairy tales and fantasy and things that seem to be one thing on the skin of it, but actually have other sort of meanings and other connotations, a thing that may appear to be real, but which can actually break down or you can break through. We've got the Rani literally acting as the kind of witchy woman, Bavarian sort of child snatcher and stuff like that. The witch who transforms kids into ducklings and stuff. So it's pulling all of these kind of threads. And, with somebody of Russell T Davies' skill, you would kind of hope that they actually come together towards something coherent and kind of, with a huge amount of wow factor, and something which is going to literally make you stand up and shout and scream and go, wow, that was amazing. But I don't think it did, mate. I don't think any of this stuff, as wild and wacky and as imaginative as it was, actually landed. Certainly not for me. I didn't buy a single word of it, because all of this was allegedly to get into the underworld to bring out Omega. Right, who is the number one dude of, there was like a trinity of Time Lords. There was Omega, there was Rassilon, and there was the other, right? We don't know who the other is, but it was heavily insinuated in the Cartwheel Master Plan and the Virgin New Adventures that this other was the Doctor, or somebody who knew the Doctor, but was actually most likely the Doctor in some form or another, which kind of, in a way, ties in possibly with the Timeless Child stuff. So, whatever. Anyway. But then in the Reality War, Omega appears as some kind of gigantic fossilized beast who's corrupted by the powers and energies of the underworld, and the Doctor blasts him in the face with a big fat laser gun. After
remember,
Omega has picked up the Rani and eaten him. So
the Sonic was changed, so it didn't look like
so it doesn't resemble a
gun.
Oh my good lord!
But the Vindicator turns into a gun thing. Yeah.
I just honestly, mate, on the one hand, right, I think a lot of this stuff is quite inventive, totally batshit bonkers, but kind of crazily good in a way. But then on the other hand, it's just lazy crap. It's just, it's almost, in some ways, it's almost insulting to anybody with any modicum of intelligence watching it to try and assemble this into a coherent storyline. So the best thing, I think, is just not to do that and just go along for the ride. And I don't know what this production team wants us to do. Do they want us to just go along with the ride and forget about any kind of relationship to reality? I mean, okay, so reality is broken. We know that throughout this whole thing. So, maybe they're suggesting we just go along for the fun of it and have fun in doing so. But I haven't had any fun in this at all, because it's like, none of it makes any kind of sense at all. We've had Susan trailed throughout as well, right? The Doctor's granddaughter. We've had the Doctor saying, ever since the Goblin episode, I think, or maybe it was just the Maestro episode, I can't remember, but he was saying, like, over there, that's where my granddaughter Susan lives. It was Maestro, wasn't it? The Devil's Gourd. Yeah. So, and the baby has the toy maker's giggle as well. So, what's the relationship there? It's the god of wishes. We've had loads of gods pop up, but this baby is the god of wishes, and it's absolutely terrifying. And mate, I'm tired. Take it over from me, please. Make some sense out of this, because I just can't, and I can't be asked, and I don't even want to, and I'm just glad it's all over, frankly.
Yeah, I've said before that I'm not often disappointed by things. I kind of, I go into things thinking, chances are I'm going to enjoy this, or, I'm really looking forward to this, or, whatever. So I think by doing that, I'm watching things that the chances of me liking are very high, and obviously I love Doctor Who, it's my favourite show. But with last series, it just didn't work for me.
This is like season 1/14, right?
I mean, Ncuti was always really good. Millie was good. There was some great stuff in it. But as a overall thing, it didn't work. Now, look, hands up, I haven't been able to move on from the 13th Doctor in that era, and I had my own, issues with Tennant returning, and possibly they coloured things slightly in series 1, but it just didn't connect with me. Now that's not to say it's bad, addendum, I do think some of it was bad, but if other people have enjoyed it, brilliant.
Enjoy it, yeah,
exactly. And having been on the receiving end during Jodie's era reveal, it's crap and it's bad writing and stuff, I felt really bad that, I didn't connect with it and I didn't enjoy it as much as, the first shooter year, because I didn't want to be that sort of person. But
you do want to be that guy.
Yeah, but I also, I'm not going to lie, and say, oh yeah, it was brilliant.
You just got to be honest, with yourself. That's all you can do, mate.
And like Paul said earlier, we are quite generally positive people and try to, always see the good in something, even if, it hasn't quite landed overall. But I think we both felt a bit kind of...
struggled with this one, mate.
Yeah, deflated Definitely. A bit by season 1. So, going into season 2, I remember saying, the trailer looks really good. Let's hope, we got something good. And
well, you liked the first few stories, didn't you? I mean,
yeah,
I think most
Revolution.
of it you've enjoyed a lot more than I have, I think. I think this is the one I've struggled with mostly. So we've almost kind of flipped from...
Almost flipped, yeah. I mean, I thought Robot Revolution was good fun. Lux was excellent. The Well was excellent. I wasn't too hot on the story and the engine.
I loved that.
Yeah, you really liked it.
I really did, yeah.
Which is funny, isn't it? Interstellar Song Contest was great. So a huge market improvement, and I really, really liked it. And I thought it was cracking. And it was a little while ago for Wishworld now, but I remember, I did quite like it. But a bit like you said, there's nothing wrong with a bonkers scenario or finale or any of that. And I've also said before, I do like things to have some sort of an explanation or an answer or whatever. Or, if you don't give it an answer, like 73 yards didn't really work for me because it was just, I felt a bit too vague and almost to the point of that there isn't any actual thinking behind it. It's, it's up to you to figure it out. Well, well, I'm not really sure about that. But with the Wishworld kind of main plot and what continued in reality, I was a bit like, my wife said to me, "So you don't look like you're that interested in this." I said, "I think it's nonsense. I don't really know what's supposed to be going on here. There's a lot of talk and there's a lot of parallax guns and indigo drives and all this sort of guffin." And
the Vlinks reappeared, didn't they? Because the Vlinks legged it when things started getting a little bit heated previously, and now suddenly he's back in the reality world, just jumps out of a crate or something.
And that was quite amusing, and it sort of, on the surface, it kind of works as a bit of fun.
Yeah, if you don't look too hard.
Yeah,
I think.
But then my wife asked me a bit more about it today, and I was like, I don't really know how to explain this all to you because I don't really know that it all made sense. And I also think there's a lot of stuff that I just don't think it's good enough to do things like Mrs. Flood talking directly to the audience. You ain't seen me, right? And doing all this for best part of 2 seasons, and then it's
what? For why?
What? It's not addressed.
Did we get an explanation for that?
No, we
didn't really.
The only thing
she did say something about it, didn't she? But it wasn't
there was
very.
A bit about there was a sort of explanation when Archie's Rani said you were supposed to be following the Doctor because Belinda and Ruby said, "Oh, you're my neighbour," and she said, and Anita Rani said, "Oh, I had Christmas off or something." You knew that.
Yeah.
That was sort of the vague explanation as to why.
Yeah, with a knowing wink. But there was no Christmas episode. I wasn't in that one. Wink, wink.
Exactly, but there was no explanation for how she talked to the audience or anything like that. And then likewise a bit later in the reality world when the glass, the screen shattered and stuff, and then it shattered again. I was a bit like, what's that supposed to mean? Because they played with all that in Lux, didn't they? With the Doctor going into the living room, and we all thought, oh my God, he's stepped out of the TV show into our world. But then, of course, it was revealed it was just another layer.
Yeah.
So I think there's been quite a lot of, trying to play with, meta and realities and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know whether it was fully thought through enough. And now, to give it the benefit of the doubt, we don't know whether, so for example, Belinda was utterly wasted in the reality world.
Well, she was wasted throughout the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, she started brilliantly.
When you think about it, and again, I'm going to say this with a massive caveat, she's not the only Doctor Who companion to suffer from his fate through the years, but she didn't do anything, really. No. A lot of the time she just stand around doing what Tegan used to do, take me home kind of thing. And I think the only time she really got involved that I can think of was in the story in the engine when she came running out the TARDIS to find the Doctor and opened the door and kind of disrupted that little thing that the guys had there.
And Verada was good, she was really good.
She was great. Yeah, she's fantastic. She brought so much to that role. I mean, she died in Andor to come to this thing, you know? And that was traumatic.
Literally got put in a box in the reality war with Poppy and a baby. And
sit this one out, love.
They and they tried to
she did for a lot.
Yeah.
It's just...
And they tried to make, the Doctor and Belinda having a baby, kind of make it mean something at the end when...
Yeah, that's right.
They
so that was...
folding the coat up.
That was quite good, actually.
I mean, it was quite affecting, but I was still thinking this would have been more effective if it had been with Ruby. Because she saw the space babies and was there for that, and she was her own, an adoptee and all of that.
Yeah, it would have hit harder, I think.
Yeah, and so, like I said, given the show the benefit of the doubt, because there was that rumor that Millie was supposed to be a fully part second series, and her part was dropped, and Belinda was brought in. So
see, let me just
say it before I forget it. We don't know whether that's true or not, but. It felt a bit like Millie suddenly kind of got sidelined, and I know Russell likes to have a different companion for, each series usually, but I think it probably would have worked better, with Ruby in it, and we don't know whether, did things change and did scripts have to be amended and things, and did this suddenly all get a bit rushed and not quite make sense in the end, and, apparently on Unleashed he said that when he started Mrs. Flood there was two ideas of who it was going to be, and he decided to pick the Rani, but that's fine. But you still need to justify the talking to camera.
You've got to make it work.
And
you've got to answer things that you've set up.
That needs an answer. You can't do something that prominent and not explain it. And you can
in a way. I mean, in one respect, you can write whatever the hell you want, but in order to give the audience the payoff and bring them on side and get them hooting for more, you've got to explain some stuff. Yeah, you've got to.
And you can't say, "Oh, it's a hoot," and there'll be answers coming, and then explain it in a throwaway line on Unleashed. I
read that. I read that in a Daily Mirror piece this morning. I think it's a hoot to bring Billy Piper back. I thought, for crying out loud, Russell, you're becoming a caricature of yourself, my friend. We love you. We do love you. We do, honestly, but. Come on, man. I think when you look at the sophistication of certain shows that are out there, I mean, genre shows, right? You look at things like, what did I tell Susan Twist to watch? The OC the other week. The OA, right?
If you haven't listened to that, Paul said, you should watch this show on Apple. It's really hardcore sci-fi, and it's really intelligent. The OC. And I was thinking, that's a show about kids in Orange County.
See, I don't know that, but you've watched it, Jeff. You've watched the OC.
I've never watched it, but I know what it is. It's like Dawson's Creek.
You little lie. Anyway, but the OA, right, which is a brilliant show, which has you guessing, and also has a reality bending aspect to it, which does require you to sort of stretch your imagination and your sense of credulity a little bit, but it justifies it all the way. It offers you an explanation for it. First of all, it offers you certain things which might be the answer, clues to point in. Some of those are red herrings, but they narrow down. They're almost like the process of elimination until what looks like it's going to be the true reason for this thing happening is one thing. And then but by that time, certainly for me watching it, I was absolutely hooked, and then you punch through that into something else. It's like, oh my gosh, now it's all tipped on its head, and it keeps you watching, but it always pays off. Every single left turn, every single shift in that narrative, every single thing that somebody does, a character, the way they move through this story, it's justified, and it has you thinking, and it has you guessing and just going along with it. When you look at Strange Things, right, which, it does, the previous series of Stranger Things was so densely compacted with stuff, lots and lots of emotions, loads and loads of character, incredible action, loads and loads of horror, and a really intriguing mystery that again set up a bunch of red herrings, but still managed to answer them and satisfy and pay off again and again and again. And by the end of that series, mate, it was just the most emotionally engaging, most exciting, most horrific thing. It was an event. It was an actual event to sit through that after 4 series and watch it. And it's the same with a lot of other stuff, So for Doctor Who to be, to want to be in that kind of elite echelon of high, absolute top quality genre fiction, it has to be better than this. It has to give its audience more. That's all I want. You can write whatever the hell you want, but you have to give your audience something. You can't cheat your audience. You can't just break out of a fucking TV screen and say, oh, this isn't real. Ha ha ha, lol's hoots. That doesn't do anything. unless it's going to pay off or something. Now, okay, you can argue maybe that's part of the whole reality bending, blah, 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 but it's shit. It's just a shit way of doing things.
Yeah.
It was an opportunity that was wasted. It didn't pay off. It was squandered. So that's what I'm really quite incensed about. We got someone who is the world's, one of the world's top writers, and he is a good writer. He's a brilliant writer.
Yeah.
But what the fuck has he done with this in the last couple of years, mate? Honestly, my head is spinning. I don't get it. How could it have gone so wrong? I'm going to put that up. How could it have gone so wrong? For me, at least, anyway. I know there's others who enjoyed it, so just...
Yeah, and that's absolutely
maybe
fair.
I'm the problem, I don't know.
Well, we said a while ago that maybe we're not the target audience anymore, and that's quite possible.
Yep,
but
for sure.
You don't then go and throw in Sutek, the Rani, Omega, Susan, and be like, hey, new fans... So what's going on there?
I saw. Sorry to interrupt. Just have to say this right before I forget. I saw someone on Twitter because while you were busy doing work and stuff, I was doing a bit of curation on our X account, our Twitter account, right? So I might have upset a few things. Don't worry about it. I'll sort it all out.
I just want to say my favourite was your tweet about seeing Jodie, and someone said, "Oh, so now you clap her appearances." And I happened to see that, and I said...
You replied to that one, that was you, wasn't it?
The fact that you commented that means you've never listened to our podcast.
Yeah. Oh, so now you're clapping for it. We've always clapped for Jodie, mate.
They deleted it,
bless them.
Yeah.
Bless them. But, I can understand why somebody would write that sort of thing, because they're just used to getting hate thrown at them, to be fair. So,
probably, yeah.
See, for some reason, they thought we were in that camp, but no, sorry, they were mistaken.
Yes, massively.
But I was so back to this thing about, you were saying about bringing back old villains, the Rani and Omega, right? So I saw someone on X who'd written, so now I've got to go research 2 Doctor Who villains, which I thought was quite funny in a way, and it's a bit of a, I don't know whether it was a sort of jokey post or a bit of a huff, like genuinely, oh God, now I've got to go back into the backstory and find out this. But actually, that's a point, because, if the target audience is younger than, say, 15, 20, between, I don't know, younger than 20 years old even, then you're not going to just suddenly know all this stuff. No. And for me, to be fair, when I was watching Doctor Who in the sort of 1980s, Omega came back, and I knew of him because I'd already read the Target novel of the Three Doctors, and I'd seen it as part of the Three Doctors, the 5 Faces of Doctor Who kind of special. So, but that was it. If I hadn't, there's lots of other monsters that were introduced that I had to go back and sort of read about, with Silurians and the Sea Devils, for example, from Warriors of the Deep. I'd heard about them because I was a dyed-in-the-wool Doctor Who fan back then, but it is part of the fun, kind of going back and researching. And now, at least on iPlayer, you can go and watch those episodes.
And that's true,
which we couldn't back in the day.
No, but we've got a plan for something about villains, haven't we? To do for the podcast.
Yeah, so, we do. Yeah,
but we won't I'll say as well. On that more.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'll just say as well, actually, because I think I did mention this to you, didn't I? Or did I just dream this? Again, reality is all shifting. But did I not mention either in our last show or the one before that this was in danger of canonising Dimensions in Time?
Yeah.
The 30th anniversary, was it 30th anniversary special? Yeah, because it was 93, wasn't it?
It sort of did, didn't it?
Pretty much has. When I said the Rani, that's right, it was talking about the Rani getting involved with EastEnders in Albert Square and, messing with, because that's a kind of a reality bend, right? So her doing that is kind of a precursor to what we saw in the Reality War / Wishworld. So there you are, mate. Russell's done it. What a genius. He's canonised Dimensions in Time. Thank you for that.
Well, there's one...
Because that's what we all needed, right?
Oh but there's one Twitter user who'll be very pleased about that. But which is, great for her.
Mate, do you know what? I know. I'm going on about being incensed. I'm not actually, because the weird thing is, I kind of sort of enjoyed... I mean, I enjoyed this finale a lot more than last year's, which I just can't watch that anymore. It's just horrible to watch. It's just, but this one actually, it kind of did work. I think more through luck or through, actually, I'm going to say this, through brilliant direction as much as anything else. I thought that the camera, everything looked gorgeous. I think everything was kind of moving, even during that 20-minute exposition. If the camera was moving, the people were moving, they were doing things with the lighting. It actually did keep me watching.
I just got to say on the exposition,
not the actual story.
Some people moaned that Jodie's era had too much exposition. But exposition is something that you need to, get information across when you haven't got the time or money to show it on screen. But I suspect by the Rani going, I know this sounds like exposition, it will be deemed a very witty and clever way of getting around exposition.
That's what I mean. You see, there's no need for that, really, is there? No, just get on with it.
You need to.
Deal with it.
You got to tell stuff, but
sorry, and we also had. We had music, didn't we? I thought we were almost going to get another dance, another musical dancey session with the Rani. I think she sort of waltzed the Doctor around for a couple of seconds.
Yes, brief bit. Yeah. I was tired when I got back from work yesterday. When I sat down to watch it.
It's been a long day for him working. Is what it is.
Yeah, well,
it's got to earn his money. Dirty lucre. It's filthy lucre.
I didn't get paid yesterday, but I filmed a wedding and it was great, but absolutely manic.
Beautiful.
So I think...
did you have a couple of champagnes while you were filming?
No.
The guy who filmed my wedding, mate, he was absolutely rat-faced. Absolutely. I don't know what the hell he was filming by the end of it. It's probably on YouTube somewhere or probably banned by them, but...
Dark web. But yeah, I was quite tired, but I was kind of thinking, this would probably be quite good fun if I was. So I think I was slightly nervous about what was going to happen in it, but the more I sort of started to think about it, the more I was like, this doesn't make sense. And things annoy me, like...
That's the thing, it's like, you can enjoy it as long as you don't think too hard about it.
And that goes back to what you said, what does the production team want, And it was things like the Doctor coming down the stairs, he took off his pinstripe jacket and stuff, and then he rounded the corner and he was in his waistcoat, skirt, trouser combo thing. And he looks really cool. But I was like...
I couldn't pull that off, but he really does rock it, for sure.
Ncuti works different styles really well. But I was like, that literally changed between shots. And, people might say, oh, well, in the MCU, everyone suits up with nanotechnology costumes and stuff these days.
CGI costumes.
Yeah, because, obviously, actually changing, on screen is pretty dull. But, it's a quick shorthand to get on with things,
just crack on with story.
But
you don't see people going to the toilet, do you? I mean, imagine that 20-minute, the Rani just goes, oh God, I'm busting.
Yeah,
just hold on, Doctor. I've just got to, and then comes back, right, yes, so, blah, 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 blah. And the Doctor's like, sorry, I've got to go now. And then Mrs. Flood's like, I'm in, go away, come back later.
But
you never see that. You don't need to.
We have clothes burning off in the regeneration and splitting and all of that. So why didn't they do something like that? Anyway, it's just a little nitpick. But let's get on to the big things. Let's do a shit sandwich. Let's start with Ncuti's regeneration. But not the aftermath of that. We'll come to that.
Okay, right. So you'd seen rumours because I saw a text on that you'd sent on one of our WhatsApp groups, right? And if you look at that chat, you will see there's a deleted post from me, which I don't know if you read it, but basically I was telling you stop being a rumour peddler and stop being that guy who peddles rumours. I don't care about rumours. I genuinely don't. I don't want to engage with them. I don't want to see them. I don't want to hear them. I do not give a zero toss about rumour. I don't, because I just don't, right? And I hate the fact that there's so much mass that accretes around rumours. It disrupts, for me, it just disrupts my enjoyment of it. I'd rather just watch it on my own terms without any kind of fluff from coming in. It's difficult now because of Tinternet and everything. But I was actually really annoyed because I'd avoided everything, and then I saw it on our bloody WhatsApp chat group, and I thought, Jeff, this is coming from you, mate, not from some knobhead in the middle of, I don't know, Texas or something. But
I don't think I said it. I was very annoyed.
I think you did. You did. And but then I thought, what, Paul, that was a bad reaction. Hence, I deleted the post and just because I've seen it, so it was done.
I probably had assumed that you would have seen it.
No, you know me by now. Honestly, how long have we been doing this? And how long have I told you? I don't engage with rumours, right? When this is off, when this Doctor Who's going on, I rarely go on. The only time I go online is after I've watched the show.
Yeah.
And I literally just focus on either getting a Facebook post done or a Twitter post or whatever it is, and then I shoot off again. Yeah, that's it.
That's the difference. I go on and I look through the feed and stuff, so I see things.
It does to your soul. It eats you.
That's why I stopped using my Twitter a while ago, because I was fed up of...
Yeah, but you're just getting it on the Who's C2C one now. You're just pulling it in from that. You had a long conversation on there with somebody going on about, the whole Billy Piper thing and why you wouldn't be happy with it if it were true.
Yeah, I did get drawn in, and, with my account, it was people whining about everything to do with the MCU, and now they're doing it again about the Fantastic Four, and I just... I don't want to deal with.
Exactly.
That sort of negativity and the rumour thing. It's all it's all
eats
a bit
your
much,
soul.
Really.
Absolutely, it just eats you. Just sucks the joy.
Out of it.
Yeah, it does.
There'd been the rumour that Ncuti was regenerating for a while, and the lack of Series 3 confirmation kind of led to that, or various other things I've seen. So, and obviously it happened, and he went, and I was, I didn't really sort of feel anything particularly. I thought, well, that's a shame, because he was good fun, and he really does have a lot of charisma, and I thought, essentially he's had 16, 17, 18 episodes. Not many.
Eight and a Christmas special. Oh, and Church, 2 Christmas specials, so 18 episodes, isn't it?
And the Giggle, and over the course of like a year and a half or something. And he was not in 2 of those episodes much, or at all.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a shame that he finished so early. Was he always going to do 2 years, which is kind of what he's said on Unleashed, apparently.
Is that?
And I saw someone saying they thought that effectively this was one series that was kind of split into 2 parts in a way.
I think I saw that, actually.
To sort of contractually cover it all, So, what happened, we'll never know. But it because there was rumours that the Regen was filmed back in February, even though the series finished filming sometime last year. So who knows? Maybe he was waiting to see what happens with, the Disney deal or what, I don't know. But yeah, I kind of, didn't really, I just hadn't become attached, And
me neither, really. No,
when
I've got the best part of, I don't know, 2.5, maybe even 3 years worth, definitely 2 years worth of Doctor Who magazines that I think I haven't even touched.
Yeah.
Because I just don't feel engaged with it at all. It's like I'll open it and I think, I don't care. For the first time ever since, I was 10 years old, it's like I've never felt as detached from a series of Doctor Who and all the goings going on behind the scenes as I have with this. It just hasn't done it for me.
And I feel awful. I don't have a subscription at the moment. for the mag?
No, I've been thinking of cancelling mine for ages, and I just haven't had the heart to do it.
Well, I know that's why I kept it going, because I know that they needed us, but it was partly a financial thing, and partly, like you, I'm getting it and I'm just not reading it. There's nothing in it that appeals to me.
I get Judge Dredd magazine as well, and I literally would spend a whole weekend every other weekend just reading those, a whole bunch of them, back to back. And the Doctor Who magazine just lies on an ever-growing pile. Just, I look at it and I think, I'll read that, it looks, but then I'll open a page and I think, I don't want to read this.
And that's why I think, maybe...
I haven't even watched any Unleashed even, do you know what I mean? Because
I haven't watched it. I only watched
I used to love Doctor Who Confidential. Religiously used to watch that, every single time the main episode had finished, I'd switch over and get it off BBC Three, I think it was back then, wasn't it? And then it was on iPlayer, but...
It's quite... it's quite sad in a way to, love the show like we do as a whole, but
maybe we're just getting old, just getting that two old fats in a tank.
Not,
you know what I mean?
It's not aimed at us.
Well, that's what you said, but
there's been a lot of things that have happened that have, annoyed me.
I'm fine with it not being aimed at us. I just think, I would just like some...
But there's decisions in it that...
I mean, Stranger Things isn't really aimed at me. I mean, well, I don't know, in a way, maybe it is, because, it's set in the 80s when I was a kid, so, there's that nostalgia factor thing to it. But I'll still... It's all about teenagers and kids in their early 20s.
Yeah.
And I think the older people in that are still younger than me, but I still love it,
But that's fine. But I think here, I feel like the show is starting to, and has now jumped the shark on this, to quote Happy Days, has now leaned way, way too much into its own lore with Omega and the Rani to an extent that we, where's the new villains, and also B, its own arsehole by looking
it's the snake, it's a Roboros, the snake that eats itself.
Looking at very, very specific times of the show to please the people that think that's its golden era, which, it was brilliant in many ways, but it's
the
not
first
the
time
only...
we all saw it,
but it's not the only golden era. It's not even... Anyway.
Well, do you know what? It's like, everybody looks at the early 70s as the golden age of Doctor Who. Pyramids of Mars, the Android Invasion, and, all that kind of stuff. And they were great stories. They were very formulaic. When I watch them, I think, they're good fun, but they're not the best. It's everybody's different, aren't they? That's the thing. We shouldn't hold on to one idea. There's a load of people who look at Patrick Troughton's second series and think, that is absolutely the pinnacle of Doctor Who.
And you're right, because like for me, Jodie's era is the pinnacle. But I was talking with Graham and Chris on the Magic chat group that I have earlier, and they said, would you have been annoyed if X came back as a different character? And I said, less so, but by by doing the things they've done, and I think it's starting to just look too far into its own self. And they said, what about Robert Downey coming to be Doctor Doom?
Ooh,
I said, well, he's playing a different character, and I think there's nothing wrong with cameos and referencing the past and stuff, but I do feel a bit that nostalgia overload is too present in a lot of things these days, and I think that Who has had threatened to, but has now collapsed under the weight of its own self-referential ego. I think, the Tennant return. You told me not to say anything about it, but it didn't work for me. Which is weird, because the episodes themselves, Star Beast, particularly Wild Blue Yonder, were great,
pretty decent,
really good. But I found the explanation for his return utter nonsense, and it was only a fan-pleasing thing, really.
Yeah, do you know,
I had my own issues with, the Jodie's clothes burning off and all of this. And
so I'm going to be honest. Yeah. So I was prepared to give that the benefit of the doubt, that there was something that had hijacked the regeneration. And actually, well, we'll talk about this in a second, actually. No, I thought that had happened by the end of Reality War, but no, it wasn't.
Nonsense. It hasn't happened.
No, I agree. Yeah, it was nonsense.
The thing that you're probably referring to...
It was a political decision, actually, was a bad decision, because it actually went against the reasons that Russell thought he was doing it for. That makes sense.
And part of my own issues were, the 10th Doctor was on comics with 13, the video game with 13, had his own multimedia thing, and all over the place. And why not 11? Why not 12? We don't need to keep doing it. Anyway, I've banged on about that enough. It upset me. So that's part one of the sandwich. Let's talk about the best bit.
Wait! We haven't even mentioned her name.
Oh no, that was going to be the closing part of the shit.
Oh,
sandwich.
Was it? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Or should we end? No, let's reorder it and go on to that.
Okay. So this is talking about old villains, then, is it? So is that specifically what you were kind of getting at?
No, I was talking about the regeneration.
The regeneration.
Do you mean the Rani?
No. So you're talking about the regeneration into Billy Piper.
Yes.
A new Doctor, potentially played by Billy Piper, right? You can't even say her name because it offends you so much. But I'm going to say it a lot, right? I'm going to say it loads.
If you say it 3 times into the mirror, she'll appear behind you.
Indeed, yeah, right. I don't now. This we could do for and against here because I know you're against it, right? And I'm not going to judge you for it much, right? But here's a reason. I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why I think it works, right? Okay, so firstly, on a personal level, so Power of the Doctor is a brilliant story and I love it, but I absolutely hate that last 30 seconds when David Tennant appears and it's almost like, in his own clothes, right? So Jodie's era is erased within 30 seconds.
Yeah. And
even the credits, the end credits, as they scroll up, they're in that font that, that we see in the current era. So within and I love that era as much as you did, mate. Honestly, for me, that is peak modern Who. It's the best it's ever been since it came back. And I know we've all got our favourites, right? And some people prefer Tennant and whatever. Yeah, whatever. But that's my peak as much as it is yours. I love it. That's how you and I came together on this, by expressing our love of that era. But I was always excited for it moving on. But I absolutely hated it. And yes, the stories were slightly better, but they were never at the same level for me as those, that whole 13th Doctor era was.
Not at all. No, I mean, they were good, but they weren't that good.
Yeah. And unfortunately, those 3 stories were actually, for me, the best of the last 2 years since then. So actually seeing the regeneration into somebody played by Billy Piper actually inspires me a little bit more that we might get something different. Now, I know you're right. Yes, it harkens back to 2005/6/7 or whatever, right? But there's a few things here. Firstly, I don't know that she is going to be the Doctor. I kind of wonder if... I was going to don't make faces, right? Just listen, because I'm not going to judge you and what you're going to say, right? So don't be a knob. Do not be that guy, right? Don't be that guy. Listen, right? There's a few things, right? Firstly, Billy Piper came back as the deadly weapon in Day of the Doctor. Yeah. What was it called? The Moment. That was it. That massive sentient bio thing, right? So she'd already been Bad Wolf, some kind of transformed version of Rose Tyler.
And that was quite fun, and it worked quite nicely.
That was kind of... that was right at the heart of the TARDIS. That was consumed by all that power and somehow was kind of transfigured into something almost godlike, right? So, okay, so what if a part of that still exists out there somewhere? Well, it does, right? Because The moment, right, which is an all-powerful weapon that exists in so many different dimensions and has ways of thinking that we can't even begin, that the Time Lords, the most advanced species in the universe, can't even begin to consider or even just think of, right? It thinks on a ridiculously higher level than that. It is its own being, that super weapon, right? So what if, actually, this is what we're seeing, some kind of version or facet of that, which to me is kind of interesting in a way. And what if, right, the Doctor is regenerating, right, but the bad wolf or the moment Rose is somehow forced into that role temporarily to sort of become the Doctor but not the Doctor, to maybe provide a sort of holding pattern until the real or the next Doctor actually arrives. Now, we saw a bit of that at the end of Tom Baker's reign, right, with the Watcher, right? The Watcher is a kind of halfway state. And all right, the Watcher doesn't do very much, just stand on the side of a motorways disrupting traffic by waving in a very mysterious fashion. Or beckoning the Doctor forward to have conversations that we're not privy to, but it's incredibly mysterious because of that, and I love the idea of that. So, the Doctor's regeneration is a thing that can be kind of played around with, right? It's a kind of miracle thing, and Russell T Davies seems to love his miracles. For him, I think Doctor Who is Jesus or / God. I think he just idolizes the idea of the Doctor so much. He's always going to put the Doctor on a pedestal with rays of light and everything, right? But I just kind of wonder if what we're seeing is not so much the Doctor as more of a midway point brought or kind of inhabited by either the bad wolf Rose Tyler or the moment Rose Tyler bad wolf thing. And I think she can do it. I mean, honestly, mate, I think she is brilliant in Day the Doctor. And everything I've seen her in, she's also brilliant. She's a fantastic actor.
Oh, yeah,
I really think she is. Now, I was like you a bit, actually, back in 2004 when it was announced Billie Piper was going to be the Doctor's companion. I thought, oh, my God, please, no, don't do this. Why would you bring, like, a teen singer who could barely sing anyway into Doctor Who, right? I thought, it's Bonnie Langford all over again. It's just, why would you? But she turned out to be absolutely brilliant as Rose Tyler.
Yeah.
She turned everything around us. Oh my God, she's great. So, and did you, and the final bit I will say on this, right? Did you and I not swap a few texts kicking off about MCU fandom and Star Wars fandom, saying that people were quite happy to trash something, for example, the Fantastic Four, without having seen it first?
We did,
so
yes.
I think we can only judge whatever happens next on what happens next, not on what we think or what we fear or what we dread is going to happen next, or even what we hope is going to happen next. We can only judge it or have a proper opinion once it's out there and we've seen it and we've experienced it.
Well, I admire your spin on it.
It's not a spin. It's truth.
Your approach to it.
Truth with a capital T, and you know it. But so come on, let's have the against.
So, yeah, Billy's a good actress. I've seen various things. Ruby in the Smoke, Diary of a Cool Girl, various things she's been in. She's really good. So it's not a doubt about her ability or anything like that at all. I think it's creatively bankrupt to do this. I think we just did a here's an old face, before, and now we're doing it again. Russell just looking back into his own era and self-congratulating him. I really didn't like Jodie becoming Tennant. Could have been Ncuti into Tennant, could have been any variation of it. I didn't like it. And I know some people say, the show needs to keep doing, mad things to keep people watching and stuff like that. You can't, it just, for me, I think there's just something about the Doctor, turning into an old face like this. I just don't like it. It just doesn't work for me. And he turned into what looks a bit like his 10th version because he's really tired and needed to remind himself to go and buy a house in Chiswick. Oh, shut up! And you know,
you don't hold anybody else's opinions on this as valid then at all? No,
no. I was just going to say, what you said there. It could be something like that. I doubt that it was planned that far in advance. I just don't like it. I don't think I really need to give any more justification to it.
No, I'm not asking you to, mate. All right.
If he turned
if you don't like it, you don't like it.
If he turned into Freema, I wouldn't have liked it. If he turned into, any of them, anyone who's been in it before, Arthur Darvill, I wouldn't have liked it, and I think trying to say, and I don't mean this dismissively, I think something's going on and it's not really the 16th Doctor because, the credits just said introducing Billy Piper.
I think it's that as well.
I think it's a reach, because...
don't know. I mean,
he regenerated. So what's happened? Because people thought, well, the moment from when Jodie turned into Tennant, something happened and they're in an alternate reality. And I suppose to a small extent they were, but not too much later. And there was no explanation for the clothes burning that became part of anything. So I just
it was
I don't
all
like
screen,
it,
wasn't it?
And I feel really, it's not great feeling like unhappy about something, because normally I just kind of roll with things, but it's twice now they've done it, and they're going back to a specific era, which you'd think I'd be chuffed about, because I particularly
enjoyed that era.
Yeah, I did. I particularly liked Tennant and Rose together. I found their whole story, culminating in Doomsday, really moving.
I think you enjoyed it more than I did.
Yeah,
because I thought it was emotionally devoid of anything. But
and I've watched it back loads over the years. But I think it's just a fundamental thing of doing this. I have no problem with.
It's moving backwards rather than moving on, right? Is that?
Yeah, it is.
Is that the thing?
I think so. Yeah, and it's just.
And it's. I think also maybe it's perpetuating the myth, as you kind of said earlier, that there is one era of Doctor Who that's the only kind of template for going forward. Doctor Who's only good when it's got this, and this.
Yeah, and it's smacks
or something that pulls from that era.
Yeah. We'll get Tennant in and we'll get 15 million viewers an episode again. You won't, because that's not what the world is like these days. And putting Billy in it is not going to do that either.
No,
we're not going back
won't.
to that.
It absolutely won't. And I mean, there's two things here, right? I mean, there's the corporate backroom stuff, which seems to be driving a lot of these sort of decisions, which I think is not unique to Doctor Who. It's out there in so many different things. The money makers are the ones who want everything to play safe because they don't want to lose money. They're not going to pay for this thing if it's going to be a loss. And quite often that's always taken the creative aspects. It's out of it. It's like literally removing the sting, like pulling the gizzards out of something so that you've just got a shell that's left. And I think as soon as corporate money grabbers get hold of a property, they destroy it, because they don't see what's really at the heart and soul of the thing that they've got. They don't know how to actually turn it into money, because they're not creative people. They're commercially minded people. It's very rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I happen to be someone who is both commercially minded and creative, but you would just never do something like that. It's always going to be a risk, and you want to minimize your risk, but be brave sometimes. Do something new. Take it forward. I think
it's, she may well be really good, and whenever it happens, I might end up eating my words and saying, "Oh, it was a far more satisfying explanation than Tennant's return." But we'll see.
I think it's all got to be on the strength of the story that follows.
Well, that's it. It's nothing to do with Billy. She'll be really good.
She'll be great in whatever she's given.
Yeah, but it's going to be all about
what she's given.
Yeah,
be worth watching. I don't know. That's the thing.
The press releases, who and how and why and where, and all this, and it's just all the same.
Finding out,
and it, but, dark
John Nathan Turner
assembling.
John Nathan Turner was kind of like that as well. He was a big showman, and he loved just getting, news columns, words in the paper, advertising, press, the works, because it all spreads. It all keeps Doctor Who in the public arena.
Yeah. But
and
we could have surely got someone more exciting and new to do
it. Maybe, yeah, but Billy Piper is going to generate headlines and is going to create a bit of a buzz about things. And just to answer your point about this old face coming back, I mean, it's not just Tennant who's returned. We had Capaldi, obviously, as you know.
Yeah.
We also had Colin Baker as well, right? Because he'd been in the story previously. And we also had Tom Baker return as the curator, who was quite obviously of a future version of the Doctor.
Yeah.
So they obviously set this thing up, that the Doctor can, be a previous face, if not actually that person. It's clearly not Rose Tyler, right? And I think all this thing about Rose is the Doctor, no, she's not.
Which I think is even weirder that the Doctor now looks like his old fancy, But
then why not, right? Because they were close, They were very close. They were so close that she was the face of the moment in Day of the Doctor.
I know.
So if it is going to be a holding pattern, or if it's an emergency regenerate, let's talk about that actual regeneration in a minute. But I don't think it's a bad thing for it to be Billy or somebody we've known. I know you do, and I'm going to respect your opinions on it. I'm just not going to agree with it.
No, that's fine.
We'll still be friends.
Yeah,
sort of.
Don't like it.
No. Also, just a couple of things. There was also the other reason I think it's not the Doctor as such is because I love that shot. Just talking about this for a second. The actual regeneration, that shot where the Doctor walks out and the lights go down as he walks towards the doors.
Really cool.
Just that little ring of light around the door. I love that, and I love the idea of him exploding into the universe in front of his Joy to the World star.
Yes, I thought that was.
I thought that was beautiful. But in that moment, there's a little cutaway back to the TARDIS console, as if it's kind of because he powered his regeneration energy into the console, right, which would have been sort of soaked in or absorbed by the TARDIS in some way. Maybe it drew something out of it in return. I don't know. We just got that little cutaway back to the console, sort of humming with a bit of life energy or something, and then suddenly the Doctor looks like Bad Wolf Rose. So it's like, ooh. For me, that was, and I watched this in the cinema as well, right? And the reaction in the cinema was really positive. I'm not going to lie, right? The last time I went to see Doctor Who at the cinema, it was Day of the Doctor, and it was packed, right? Absolutely, every seat was taken. This time, I don't know, it was probably about a third full. It wasn't as busy, but everyone was quite engaged, and it was really nice. I mean, I was there with Freya, and we were sat in a row with a bunch of people, and the guy next to me was saying, "So, what are you sort of hoping to get?" And I just answered to him, and I said, "Something that makes sense." But when it came to those moments, and we're going to get to the other big moment in a minute, because that's much more fun. Literally, the place erupted, man. I kid you not, it was brilliant.
That's
it was
great.
Like a shared experience again, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's right." And I might have heard a dissenting voice at the back say, "Oh my God, what have they done?" or something like that, or it was, "Oh my God, it's true," or something. It was that kind of thing. That was it. Everyone else was like, "Oh my God," and start clapping.
And that's brilliant, and may well be I'm in the in the minority here.
That's right.
On this, it's not working for me.
That's fine. We don't have to talk about this anymore. We can move on to the other part of the sandwich now. The much more exciting bits.
Yes.
Come on then, I'll give this to you.
We got the real golden era back for a moment.
Oh, we did, didn't we? And did you know there were anything about that? Or had you seen any rumours that Jodie was coming in, or what?
I'd seen one well-known hater of all of it on Twitter say, "Oh God, she's coming back. Could they ruin it anymore?" And I thought,
say to you, my friend. Whoever that is.
And I thought, I wonder. I can't remember if I'd heard the Billy rumour by then or not. But that was the only, and he put Jodie as the GIF, and that was the only thing, literally the only thing I'd seen. So, considering this, if we see this production as a ship, it's gone down real quick because of all of its leaks. And this was really the only one that I hadn't seen anything about, so they really did keep it, under wraps.
Watertight.
So it was, for me, an absolute joy, to see her again. I thought her and Ncuti in their brief time together were fab. We got a bit of development regarding Yaz and, 13 not saying things like "I love you," and as she's, been a bit like that before, doesn't kind of open up a lot, And Jodie was just great. She looked so cool in her outfit again, and she said the line, "Oh, you've redecorated, I don't like it." And
I wish they put that one to bed, to be honest. That's the thing that really annoys me. I hate that line. It's like timey-wimey, which they said as well. Come on.
They did, and normally I'm a bit over that as well, but they said it together, and, I will admit I'm giving it all a free pass, and, but it was glorious.
Yeah, there's no bias going on here at all, is there?
No,
right?
no. And it did make me really happy, and I watched her bit on Unleashed, and she's so happy to be there and to go back, and God, I wish we'd had another series after Flux, but it was just fantastic. And funnily enough, I had sent Ray Holman a message the other day about something, and he wrote back today, and he said, "Oh, I saw Jodie's bit. Lovely to see her on the show again." So I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
So because I'd tweeted or blue sky the other day about, we got more 13 back soon, and I've been rejoicing, referencing Big Finish. And I had no idea she was actually going to show up on screen at that point. So, it was great. I really liked that.
It was.
Yeah.
We had.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say they made a joke about, it's not the other bloke, he's always turning up. So,
again,
slightly
introspection.
Aware that,
up its own backside a bit, but at least it shows they know that, and I think that was a nice bit of just letting go and just having a bit of actual fun with the show, rather than trying to hoodwink us into all kinds of things. So it's like, forget about all the guff that's happened before. That was a really good moment. I must. So here's what happened in my experience, right? So obviously we're in the cinema, me and Freya, and it goes on about all this kind of poppy stuff, and I think there was like a row of kids in front of us, like quite younger kids, maybe a little bit older than your kids, perhaps, but they were getting really excited. They were so excited when the theme tune started on the second episode. They were literally bouncing up and down like that, like they'd been on the fruit shoots or something. Diddly dum, diddly dum, diddly dum, diddly dum. I mean, I was doing that when it was Omega's heartbeat.
Yeah, that was good. I liked that.
Yeah. So, but back to Jodie's bit. So, literally nobody had any idea. I don't think, because the reaction was like just gasps and cries of astonishment. And oh my God, she's back! Someone said, just down below us and there, and I was looking through, and there were people literally sitting up, looking forward like that, and the kids that had been bouncing were like, "Is it her? Is it her? Is it her?" Like that. And I looked at Freya, and she was like that as well, and she had a tear coming down her eye. I said, "You're crying?" She goes, "Yeah, she's back. My girl's back, and all this, my queen, and all that kind of thing." She was loving it, and I think when she said about Yaz, she was just going like that. She was just. And it's like, I think that just literally just wipes out everything that's happened in the past 2 years.
Yeah, it was all worth it for that.
But so there were two things that were going through my mind at that point, right? Apart from just looking at, well, three things. Firstly, the joy of everybody in the room, and
that's great.
We've anybody who's shown any support for the 13th Doctor's era, They've had it tough, but we've all been led to believe that those people who like the Chibnall and the Jodie's Doctor and all that, they're a minority, a bunch of weird minority people, basically. The vast majority of us don't really like that sort of thing at all. It's all rubbish. Time to shop, blah blah blah. Jodie's not a Doctor, all of that kind of thing, right? But there was not one voice of dissent that I heard in that auditorium, right? And it was only a third full, but everybody in there would literally jump for joy. That's the only way I can describe it. There were literally people jumping out of their seats, leaning forward. Freya was crying her eyes out. There was not one who said, "Oh my God, it's her again," or anything like that. It was literally claps, applause, and just, it was so brilliant to see. It's like, yeah, and okay, so that was the first thing that was going through my mind. And the second thing was, right, okay, has everything been a dream up to this point? Is she actually still the Doctor? Yeah. And this is just some nonsense? Please let that be true. And it wasn't that. That was gone pretty quickly. But the third thing that was in my head is like, oh my God, I've got to tell Jeff. And I'm like, no, I can't tell Jeff, because obviously you were filming this wedding. You weren't going to watch it till much later on. But I had to tell you, don't go online. I had to say, do not do it. Not because of the regeneration, because at the time I didn't even know that was going to happen, but literally because the Jodie thing. Because I thought, if you don't know about this and you accidentally go on Twitter or something, because you will see it everywhere, it will literally, and it was, right? It was everywhere. I thought, you can't have this taken away from you. You cannot have this moment taken away. And as soon as Jonathan sent us a little WhatsApp, have you seen it? I'm like, I jumped on it. Jeff hasn't watched it yet.
Yeah.
Don't take that away.
I just want to...
Because I thought, you know what, Jeff is going to love this when it happens, and I'm so pleased you did.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was just wonderful. I'm going to come to some comments from other people in a minute, but I just want to read one. Steve Tudor. Blue skied me. I don't know what you call it. But he said, I immediately thought of the massive smile that must have been on your face in reference to her returning. And that's, thanks, Steve. That's lovely.
See, we're all thinking about you, Jeff.
Yeah.
We are, mate, honestly.
Thinking.
It's even like, because I was hardly even listening to what was being said, because I was thinking, do I text you now? Do I wait till I get out, or what? Till I take the risk? But it's crazy.
I was just saying someone else commented as similar as well. Might have been Dan Hollingsworth, but that might have been on my account, which I can't get to at the minute. So I'll just read a couple of comments. So over on Twitter, Randy Elaine said, love that Ruby got a meaningful end to her arc. She defeated Conrad on her own terms, and all of the reality bending she has endured positioned her to overpower the magic of the Wish World. Oscar Groucho says, even within the episode, nostalgia is king. The reality war deals with the past of the show as dogma, the incidents of yore reframed as fables and folklores from universes beyond and below. In that respect, the unexpected cameo at the conclusion is no shocker at all. Vince Bishop says, jaw still on the floor, wondering what the hell I just saw. Utterly bewildered, really don't want Billy as the Doctor, hoping it's just a regeneration glitch, would rather keep Ncuti. Sleuth Time Lord says, Omega and Rani were underused and felt like fan service. Belinda deserved a better farewell.
Not even fan service, like it didn't even qualify for that, I don't think. But
no. Better security at the BBC, as I've read that Jodie was coming back. Cheeky Monkey Picture says, utterly brilliant Doctor Who at its grandest and greatest. Oscar Groucho did do a second tweet. The more things change, the more they remain the same. There is a sense that the Doctor acknowledges some realities of their life are immutable. This could be the titular reality of the piece, the acceptance of change and mortality of an audience that doesn't want you to.
Very esoteric reading
very
of it
interesting,
there.
yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
DW Fan 91. Weirdly enough, I feel my thoughts growing more positive with time. I need a lot of time to sit on this episode to come to a full conclusion that encompasses everything. Similarly, Spider, who's at Universal Event, says, I cannot yet articulate into words my evaluation of that. It's going to take a while. The whole season as a whole was spoiled for me by the joy hoovering parasites who post major plot points in advance.
That's why I try and avoid them.
Yeah,
honestly.
And I must say,
take
it's
yourself
been
offline, man.
Shocking, the leaks this time. Bertie Odell says, the best, Jodie, the good, Ncuti, Verada and Millie, all brilliant, and love the unit battle action and the supporting characters.
Yeah, that was good.
That was quite good,
actually
yeah.
did. I mean, it was nonsense with the whole unit tower sort of spinning round and stuff, but what the hell, just go with it. And actually, again, when I'm talking about the direction, I thought that little set piece in the middle of that, it was bang on. I loved that.
It was good. Nervous and curious about Billy. Sad to see Ncuti go. No Susan.
That sort of went nowhere, didn't it?
And Rani was wasted. Koala Bear Workshop says, felt like it's too soon for Ncuti to leave. His arc doesn't feel finished.
100%.
Hoping Rani regenerated after learning the Doctor did it and did an experiment on herself to do it. Worried Piper wasn't introduced as the Doctor. Don't want another small stopgap like 14.
It's kind of burning through the Doctors, aren't they? We'll be on the 30th Doctor by 2032 at this rate.
Yeah. Let me just have a look, because we had a few more comments on an earlier post for it.
We've had a lot of comments on our tweets, because I was doing a lot of tweets out there last night while I was kind of waiting for you to get off your ass and actually watch the thing.
Yeah. You did do some.
There's something on Facebook as well. Have a look on Facebook. I can't log in because I'm on my laptop now, and I can't remember my password and all that crap.
I'll just quickly go to Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And let me just load this up. Toon Toy Lair says, it just seems like one big setup to bring Ncuti back. I don't think he's gone. That's really interesting. I think he is, I'm afraid.
I think he is. I think he's on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. Supreme Human says, awful. Wasted Belinda, Rani and Omega. I was confused about Poppy's existence. Kate and her boyfriend, Mel, Shirley and the Vlinks did nothing at all, and Rose was just her usual non-self. I forgot she was called Rose, yeah. Ncuti Regen, I felt nothing. He wasn't there long enough. One bright spot was Jodie, absolutely brilliant. Got a chuckle from the two Ronnies gag. And
there you go. Yeah, two Ronnies. Yeah.
Baggy says, I didn't enjoy much of Wishworld, but I really enjoyed the finale. Loved 13 and 15 together. Great chemistry. A perfect fit of similar Doctors. Pity Ncuti's departure means it unlikely we'll see them again. Ncuti's pre-regen was a match for 13's joy, acceptance and hope. Enjoyed Anita / the Time Hotel scenes and the restoration of everyone's memories. On that, I just wanted to say her doing a time door to get the Doctor out of the falling balcony. I was a bit like, talk about get out of jail.
Literally. And but it's okay because we mention it in the next scene. The Ronnie says, he had a magic door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the end she
says... Just because you reference it in the show doesn't make it all right and witty and clever and all that. So I keep saying to you, mate, fourth wall breaking, it's just lazy writing half the time.
And then at the end she said, the boss, something about the boss. Oh yes, we must remember the boss, the meat.
We still haven't found out who the boss is, have we?
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
think
this is why
anyone
we
knows.
need Bad Wolf Rose to be the Doctor, because it needs something more powerful than the Doctor to face the boss. Just bookmark this part of this podcast in case that is actually true.
Yeah. The Ranis, I'd hope for better reasoning from Archie's Rani, and boy, did she soon have buyer's remorse. R.E. Omega. Omega, disposable and pointless, really. Billy, New 16 or something darker.
It could have been any monster coming out of that tomb, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Things I liked. I like the Time Lord heartbeat coming out, nice and centaurous, and that's become a thing which... in recent years I do like. Then we saw the hand of Omega, Gnarf, right? The hand of Omega come around the door and reach out. But then it was like, well, it could have been anything. I like the seal of Omega as well. The seal of Rassilon turned into the Omega thing. And in the Arc of Infinity, Omega had a little thing on his top. And they replicated that pretty much like for like with a few little twiddly bits, which I think is great. So, that's nice. That's fan-pleasing stuff, because in the background almost, you wouldn't know it unless you were an absolute dyed-in-the-wool fan. But Omega bringing back for a reason. We've had 2 series really building up to this, and it turns out he's on there for 90 seconds. He's just some CGI old fossil, terrifying, weird shit, nasty to look at. Yeah, sure. But it could have been anything.
Could have been
literally anything. Call it whatever. Call it Ajax. Which reminds me, rocket ship Ajax, Flash Gordon. I mean, Russell must love Flash Gordon. We had the rocket sled thing. So the previous, in the end of the giggle, we had the thing taking the toy maker's tooth away or something. That's obviously something that's gone nowhere. So, a lot of a lot of fun things, but really going nowhere. A lot of fan-pleasing stuff, but pointless. Again, a lot's been made about the Doctor having a granddaughter. I thought Poppy might be giving us an explanation for why Susan exists, because maybe she's Susan's mum or something through some sort of time-bending thing, but no, not even that. Right. And, that whole thing at the end, because, again, once the story had been done and everyone's been dispatched, Freya turned to me and said, there's still 16 minutes to go. And it's like, okay, so something's going to go on now. Yeah. And there's a whole Poppy thing afterwards. It's like, well, what? Yeah. So the whole reason, the Doctor regenerate, not because, he did sacrifice a life for a life, but up until 2 minutes ago, he couldn't even remember who he was fighting for, No. So I just, nothing in this two-part story, there was some really good stuff in it, but nothing really settled, nothing engaged really. No. It just, I don't know, maybe I need to watch it 3 or 4 more times, but I don't want to watch it again. I could seriously just forget about it. And the whole regeneration thing was tacked on. Another thing I liked, which I think was in Wishworld, was the kind of undercity of, people who had been cast aside, disabled people, blind people, deaf people, those who don't fit into Conrad's world. So there's a nice kind of political aspect to that. And, there's a really good line in there, because, we're not seen, and because we're not seen, we can't be seen, and therefore we can become the rebellion, like the silent rebellion almost. And the other thing I like, before I forget, is another fan thing, and I put this out on Twitter. I put this out on our Twitter page, right? Because the Bone Palace thing, right, struck me from something I'd read by someone we've interviewed on here, actually, Peter Angelides. Sorry, Peter, I can't pronounce your name, and I do apologise. But the one, the ancestor cell, right? And this great massive bone structure appears in the skies of Gallifrey in this story. And it's brilliant. And it turns out to be a TARDIS. It's a TARDIS that has kind of exploded outwards and become fossilised. And it's a wonderful concept. And it's I think, if memory serves, it is actually, sorry to give the plot away, but I think it is actually the Doctor's TARDIS returned after spending millennia being herded, tortured almost by the faction paradox, the great enemy of the BBC Eighth Doctor books. And it's a brilliant concept. And, I know Russell was kind of into those at the time, and so was I. And I just wondered if the Bone Palace was the Doctor's TARDIS in the same way. And it was.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Yeah.
I like that. That. But again, that's a fan thing in the background. You wouldn't get it unless you were there.
Yeah, unless
Sorry, go on.
I'll just read Facebook in a minute. But I was going to say, I thought Susan Twist was fab in the episode.
She was great.
Yeah, really good. Yeah,
it was good to see it. I'm only a year old.
Yeah, and then the bone thing came along. She said, "What the bloody hell is that?" or something. And
that was a nice bit of reality amongst all the nonsense going on. To be honest, and I'm glad she was there for that.
It was good. Nice.
Because she's lovely. Susan Twist is. If you haven't listened to our interview with Susan Twist, please do. Please do, because she is absolutely fantastic. Whatever you thought of the episodes or anything, just listen to Susan talking for 10 minutes. She's on there for an hour, I think. I think we had her on for an hour. We could have had her on all day. She was brilliant, and I really hope she'll talk to us again.
Yes, I hope so,
She might not, though, once she listens to our episode.
Yeah. It's not you, Susan.
Because I think we weren't very kind with Empire of Death, were we? Yikes.
And no, I felt that. Oh, she was good in it, of course, but it didn't fulfil on the promise of Sutek, sadly.
Anyway, Facebook.
Ben Thompson says he went to the cinema to see it and he was so glad he did. Rani and Omega were dispatched with ease. Where was our promised giant lobster man, which was a rumour going around. But that wasn't really what it was all about. Honestly, seeing 13 again has made my week. That wasn't spoiled for me, luckily. I just adore her. 13 and 15, what a pair. I had an awful feeling during the regen that it would end before we saw 16 because of rumours of cancellation. When we finally did see 16, I laughed with joy. Another woman, fantastic. I agree with that.
There's that as well, absolutely.
Doctor Who hasn't made me feel quite like this since Power of the Doctor. My heart is full, joy to the world, which is lovely. Asi Riel, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I didn't see any of this coming and thus was properly surprised. When 13 appeared, I literally screamed and maybe shed a happy tear. She and Ncuti were great, even if they didn't have much time together. His send-off was beautiful, with stunning music and visuals. It was a bit unfortunate that Rani was disposed so quickly, but other than that, I really enjoy it. Samantha Lee Shank says, I was surprised that it wasn't as much of a train wreck as I thought it would be.
I saw her comment earlier. I saw that one earlier, and I was going to reply, Samantha, and say that's definitely going in the podcast. I'm glad you found that, Jeff. Yeah. Yes, I love that. What's a train show is that?
Maddie Dilly, that's a new name that I don't recognise before, so thanks for commenting. I watched it at the cinema. The reaction to Jodie and to the final scene was so much more special, surrounded by other fans. Sad to see Ncuti go. I think he had another season or two in him, but I respect his decision to step down. I need to fully process the episode. There were things I loved and things I need to work out properly to make them make sense, but I thought it was a good wrap-up. The only real negative was how little time Omega was actually threatful and how quickly he was banished.
And they shot him with a gun.
And a few bits about questions unanswered, where Susan comes from, if Time Lords are sterile. Poppy felt like the answer to that, but clearly isn't. Reference to the boss, so hasn't been dealt with. A happy Doctor Who fan is forever grateful to Ncuti, who finally hooked my 13-year-old onto Doctor Who, meaning we could share this moment in the cinema
That's what
together.
It's all about.
That's lovely.
Oh, brilliant.
Pamela Henrose says, love seeing Jodie, curious about how things will go with Billy. It'd be interesting for her to be the Doctor or more, but if she's just in a few episodes like a rehash of 14, reliving glory days or whatever, that's just annoying. And she says,
that's where you're coming from, I think, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. John Cole, I went to the cinema, good crowd, lots of oohs and ahs. I hadn't followed any rumours recently. I knew there was a good chance he was going to regenerate. Beyond that, I was surprised by some of the cameos. Also felt that Omega was dealt with too quickly. Where was Susan? He thinks the regen is a bluff setting something else up, which is interesting, but he says, I do think they need to stop constantly referring to the recent past with repeat faces. I think a proper surprise would have been a totally new actor, not someone linked to the Who-niverse. I still enjoy the show, but it's not what it once was. Anthony Fagan says no, he didn't enjoy it because all the major things were leaked and he knew about them. Morgan Haynes says, I love the final few moments, seeing the return of Jodie, Ncuti's regen. Very much baffles me how Billy is the 16th Doctor, because in the credits she wasn't regarded as that. It's a shame characters like Rani and the Omega were wasted, and it didn't do Ncuti justice at all. James Byron Daniel says, Omega was woeful, shame Ncuti is going, and I'm sceptical about the regen. Poppy was really good, but there's something rather unlikable about all of this. I've enjoyed the season overall, but this is not working for me. CJ Williams, last one, says, coming away from it, I'd say the problem of the Bee, but not getting behind new ideas and people is more apparent than ever. It just can't move on from Tennant's era. I don't blame the people making the show. I do. It's just a shame the last couple of Doctors have borne the brunt of the Beeb's insecurities. Ncuti and Jodie are terrific and deserve to have been treated better. So I think it's all
totally
quite
agree with
interesting
that one. I
there.
think that sums it up quite nicely.
Yes.
Brilliant.
So,
thanks for your comments, everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone. That's really great. It's very late here. I'm going to need to go to bed because I've got to go to work tomorrow morning.
You've got to get up in the morning, go and earn some dough, ain't you? Got to get down to Job Office and get your chicken.
Yes.
Get your dry doughs.
So thanks for listening, everyone, and commenting. And we will be back very soon with our next episode and some
with
more
a new look.
Things and a new look as well. So look out for that, and we'll see you very soon on Who Corner to Corner podcast.
Brilliant. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye for now.